Welcome. I want to thank everyone for joining us to another Teaching Tidbits series. I'm very happy to welcome our esteemed colleague who is an expert in health and wellness. And we're going to be having a conversation just about that in these times that are much needed for us to learn how to address many different challenges that we are having today. Um, Welcome, Fabian. We want to hear from you. We want to first of all know how you are. You can just tell us a little bit about you.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. And I want to start with happy Friday. Can you hear me all?
We're good.
Awesome. Yeah, happy Friday. It's always happy to be towards the end of the week. And, I think it's super important to just cherish every opportunity and all the positive things that you can find. So sorry, that's my dog barking in the background. As you can see, working remotely and working from home is can be quite challenging. Balancing family life, balancing. I have two young boys. Balancing that with their schoolwork and the work I do for the college, and jumping from one computer to the other, it becomes quite the juggling act. But I think it's something that we can all kind of learn to manage and learn a bunch of different skills. And that's one thing that I've learned. I've used different platforms. I use technology that I've never used before, and I'm constantly learning, and that's one positive thing during this terrible pandemic. Um, and so I find ways that you can kind of retrain your brain in a way to see things from a more positive perspective, and that's something that's been useful for me. I do go on the campus one day a week, and I manage the food pantry. And that one day a week is a blessing for me. I just really enjoy being on campus and interacting with students alone again. I'm alone on campus. No one else is there for the most part. But when I work with the students, it kind of re-energizes and revigorates me. And we're happy that we're able to offer that service. And when I do see the students when they come in for the pantry, I get to kind of ask them how they're doing, how they're managing school, and how they're managing, family and this coronavirus and everything else. And I kind of get to engage with them on that personal level. And that really helps me focus on how I'm going to try to better engage with students.
Thank you, Fabian. And I think for many of people who are joining us that do not know Fabian's work, it's been amazing to have the support, as you mentioned, for our students to still being able to offer the food pantry, any needs that we could potentially provide support for, and knowing that the college is there to provide that support. And on behalf of our students and our campus community, we want to thank you for for doing that for the school. And you mentioned about trying to identify ways of balancing and uh, all of the different things that we're having right now. The first question that I wanted to ask is about work and life responsibilities. How many of those, how those responsibilities changed due to these transitions?
Sure. So the first process is really learning how can you do your job or similar job remotely. Um, Kind of offer as many of the same services as you've done before, doing it through your computer at home or wherever you might be. At the same time, when you are home, you might have family around that kind of will come to you and interrupt you in the middle of a Zoom meeting. I have my dog now interrupting me. So these are the things that happen, and really learning how to kind of, first of all, um, not be so hard on yourself and not expect that everything's gonna be perfect, and understand that there are going to be interruptions. And I think that decreases some of the pressure that we put on ourselves. We're not in the office, we are working in really difficult environments that we're not accustomed to, and really being able to really try to do the same, or as best you can, similar type of work that you're doing in this environment when you have all of these kind of distractors. So what I find that has been really helpful for me is really kind of setting up a routine, from when you get up in the morning, you have your coffee, you have your tea, your breakfast or whatnot, and then you log into your computer. You want to probably get out of your pajamas and change to really feel like, all right, I'm in the work mode state of mind. And responding to emails, getting on meetings, getting into that structured routine, and at the same time handling whatever things come to you from working from home. I think the other thing is it's important to also kind of take breaks. And so, like, for example, this morning, although I had coffee at home, I really needed to kind of get off the workstation and just get off the computer. So I left the house and I put on my mask, and I took a nice walk to a local coffee place, picked up a cup of coffee, walked back, and I got back on the computer, and I felt like I was re-energized and refocused. That is really important. I'm on my maybe on my fourth kind of video meeting today, and for many different reasons. And being on the meeting, doing this, doing that, it's really can be draining, especially if you're sitting down. So it's super important to know your limitations, to take those breaks, to if you can get some fresh air, obviously using a mask and taking all the precautions that are being recommended. But I think that if you don't do that, you're really going to burn out, and I find that to be useful. Another thing that I've been doing a lot is just contacting my colleagues. Just a regular phone call. How's it going? What's new? How are you managing this? What do you think about this? Email that went out. What do you suggest? And using them as a support system has been really, really helpful. So those are some of the tips that I would say I recommend everyone do if they can. And those are some of my initial recommendations.
I mean, you've given a lot of great tips for one of my things. I don't count the number of video meetings or virtual meetings that I have every day. It just continues and continues and continues every day. So it is important for us to be able to have those breaks, and I agree completely. I have to, as I'm learning through this series of conversations that I've had with a number of colleagues. I'm getting a lot of tips. I have to make sure that I get those tips and practice them. You mentioned about balancing work and life during this crisis, and you mentioned a lot of tips. And there is this connection between work, but then there is also what goes on at home. Having kids and then identifying that they also need the support, homeschooling, and how have you been managing this?
Yeah, so I say that those are one of the biggest challenges I think for folks that have children or younger children at home, is, they're constantly kind of calling you and asking you, hey, I need help with this, or I don't know how to do that. So you're kind of jumping on their computer, helping them. And then, you're going into your meeting or your work, and then they're kind of coming back and forth. And we have to be, flexible and understanding that we are not in the office, we are at home, and we can't expect, this to work perfectly. And really trying to, do what you can for your job, but also do what you can for your family. And that, also setting some kind of rules and boundaries with your children where, look, daddy's in this meeting, and it's a really important meeting. Please try not to interrupt me. If you have to, just kind of wave at me, and I'll turn the camera off so I can go address something, or mute it, so I can kind of address some of their needs. Because we're learning two things. We're learning for work from home, and we're also learning to parent and teach remotely. And I'm learning a lot about arithmetic again and division, and it's refreshing my brain. And I actually kind of enjoy some of the work that they're doing in school. But it is something that we have to be cognizant of. And I just keep repeating that thing is, do not expect to be perfect. When you're in meetings and you're in a Zoom meeting, or what, WebEx, whatever, you might see kids walking into the video, or you might see, your partner walk by, or, some, alarm going off. I mean, it's okay. And that's something that you need to tell yourself, that it's okay. These are uncharted waters for many of us. And this is something that we're learning as we go move along. And you can't just expect yourself to, be perfect in any which way.
And it's true. And the level of flexibility and understanding from people whenever we have this type of meetings, especially when they're large meetings, when we have so many people joining, when you see distractions, when you see kids especially joining to the screen, it's people react very well to those distractions, which were not the same. The when we were in the face-to-face environment, we had we couldn't bring kids because of the distraction, and now some of those distractions are okay. And even they give a nice addition flavor to those meetings as well. And I want to thank Bibi Lynch, who is connected, is saying kudos for uh, to Fabian. And we're going to be having conversation. Another question that we're going to be having is about, since we have all of those different changes, all of the different things that we have to focus on, the levels of stress, anxiety are increasing by the hour. Um, would you share any tips on how we can apply to kind of decrease these levels of anxiety and stress?
Yeah, definitely. One thing is, don't watch the news all day. That's my first recommendation. Things constantly change on the news, and we're constantly getting different information, and it can become overwhelming. And then we just kind of, it's really important to disconnect from those things. What I find to be useful, and everyone has a different way of managing stress, but I think if you enjoy exercising and you have that opportunity, if you have done meditation before, that's really important. Whether it be from home, or if you're able to safely go out for walks. I've had people tell me, "Oh, I'm afraid to go outside," and I understand that. But you can go outside for a walk, as long as you're practicing social distancing and wearing a mask. I think it's a safe way to just kind of do a little bit of exercise, get some fresh air, disconnect. I also, encourage people to listen to music, to read books, to watch, favorite. I've been watching a lot of movies, Netflix shows, things that are totally kind of distract us and disconnect us from, everything that you've been hearing on the news. And you also have to realize that we have no control over these things. We can only control what we do. We cannot control what happens with this virus. We can't control the decisions made by, our elected officials. We don't have that control. And when you start to kind of let go of that and understand that we, need to focus on what we can manage and what we can control, and really being present and focus on what's happening here in the moment, versus thinking, oh, will school open up again? We'll have to be kind of pushed to, or, have to go to, back on campus, even in the middle of this pandemic, and starting to kind of build up some of that anxiety and some of that stress. And if you really think about that, we have nothing, there's no one telling you this, that you are going back, in a couple weeks. So I think things like that, you have to kind of almost tell your brain to stop overthinking things. You have to speak to your brain. I do that to my brain a lot. I say, listen, stop, you're going down the wrong way, the wrong path. And really remind yourself that, look, everything's going to be fine. This too shall pass, and we're going to get through this. We are definitely going to get through this. Things are going to change. We are going to, get through this really difficult time, and really being hopeful about the future, and that this is only a temporary situation. And I know it's hard to hear sometimes when you're going through it, but I think we need to remind ourselves that this is a pandemic, and this is temporary, and it will not last forever, and we'll get through this. And I always, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is really important to use your friends, your support system, your family, whoever you can talk to. It might be a professional counselor, anyone that you can talk to, kind of to just vent and really discuss some of these stresses that you might be experiencing.
And although we cannot have these conversations in person, but then luckily we are at a time where technology allows us to be connected, and making sure that we're able to identify how we can, as you said, use that support network that is very, very important in addressing any different challenges that we have when we're facing in life. I want to say hi to Sandy Figueroa, who is agreeing with you about not watching the news 24/7. Thank you for joining, Sandy. And for everybody that is connected, just make sure that if you have questions for Fabian, type your questions in the chat, and then we will be answering. Fabian will be answering the questions that you post. One of the things that I wanted to ask, identifying all of the lessons that this pandemic and the transitions to distance instruction have given us. What are some of the things that you would say that we could apply as we go to the next to the new normal?
Yes, so I kind of mentioned a little bit before, is that I'm using these tools and technology that I've never used before, and it's really cool. It's really interesting, and and I find a lot of really interesting features that I've never utilized before. So if you think about moving forward, maybe to the next phase where we might be working virtually and doing remote meetings and remote learning, or maybe half the time working physically on campus and the other times working um, remotely, is really basically, first of all, patting yourself on the back that you learned all these new cool technologies that you can now use and add to your skill set. And these are things that you can do, maybe more frequently, like have meetings with your team. Maybe folks aren't able to make it for different reasons, but really kind of having that ability. Today I was working on some middle states work with the team, and we were able to kind of share screens and edit some data and fill out some Excel grids together, and it was really great. You think about how difficult it is to get a meeting sometimes with different folks from different divisions. It can take a couple of weeks sometimes to really get everyone available at the same time. But when you do these kind of meetings, we were able to get all of us on at the same time and do a working meeting and actually get something accomplished. I felt good about it, and I thought that, wow, this is actually a pretty nice tool. Even if I'm on campus and maybe a faculty member might be, off campus but available from home to participate, this might be a nice tool that we can utilize.
And you are completely right, because I remember projects that we've been working on and trying to get common times to set up meetings have been challenging. And even if the project or the meeting had to last for about an hour or half an hour, the amount of time that you spent in trying to coordinate to have those meetings happening, were was a big deal to spend. And I have also a number of people that are connected. I'm just going to say hi to Professor Ruben Worrell, who's saying hi. Raymond Perez, thanks for joining us. Chi Bernabe, thanks for joining, connecting. I know, and they're just having a conversation within the chat, which is good. That this is the idea also. This space we created so that we can also make this type of conversations a moment to have to connect, to have a conversation, and hopefully sharing useful tips for other people that might be able to learn from it. There is a comment from Bibi. Fabian, I haven't gone to store to get coffee. In your experience, how are the baristas and coffee shops staff feeling about all of this?
So, I went to the closest one, which is Dunkin Donuts. Wore my mask. There's a lot of regulations where, a certain amount of people were allowed in the store at the same time. Um, and, they have this kind of plexiglass type of or plastic shield in front. And I think, they seem to be in good spirits. I think they're happy to be working and happy to be interacting with people. A lot of folks know the people working, the baristas, and they've been to seem to be in good spirits. So, I think, again, if you use the proper precautions, wear that mask and keep that distance, 6 feet at least, distance between yourself and the other person. It was a very easy transition, and it was good. Again, just speaking to people in the community, it's a good feeling. You feel like you feel liberated, and you also feel like this is going to get better, and it is getting better, and this is going to pass, and we're going to go back to maybe not the exact same normalcy we had before, but we're going to be heading in that kind of direction. So it gives you a little bit of hope, and so that's how I felt after that experience.
That's it's good, and I'm gonna uh, add a couple of comments. Great job, Fabian, Carlos from Raymond. Kathleen Delgado has also uh, joined us and is thanking for making the food pantry happen, Fabian. And same thing from Dennis Bates. And Food Studies Hostos is also tuning in. Sandy is telling us that this may be a hard sell for people who have a burning desire to meet and expect everyone to meet face to face. I think the fact that we are seeing that working remotely could be effective, and could be effective if we are able to plan it correctly, then it would be possible. And I think I've seen a lot of creativity, a lot of innovation from different places, offices, faculty, students. So this is going to make us stronger, as you mentioned, as well as we overcome this pandemic. One last question that I want to ask, and then time usually goes quickly where we have great conversations. I wanted to ask for any final advice that you would like to give to the college community, faculty, staff, students. Were you able to hear me?
You kind of broke in and out. I heard you kind of asking about some last minute recommendations
Yeah,
for.
a final advice on how would you like to, that you would like to share with the college community, faculty, or staff, students, our members of the community.
Sure. First thing is be hopeful. Um, know that this is going to pass. This is a temporary situation, and we're gonna get through this together. Use your network, your social network, whether it be your colleagues, your friends, your family, positive people around you. Try to stay away from the ones that are, kind of very negative and just thinking about, just a lot of morbid stuff. I have people telling me about what they see on the news and the negative stories, and I've seen them, and I don't want to hear about them again. So really try to stay away from that if that's something that might trigger you and give you some anxiety or stress. One thing that I didn't mention is really your health and your diet. And it's really important because we're not moving around as much as we're normally used to. Really pay attention to your health and your eating habits. And those cookies look good. You're home all day. Boredom can lead to folks going out and digging into the refrigerator and eating all those fun snacks you have. I steal some of my kids' snacks at times, and I'm like, I feel bad afterwards. So really try to be aware of that, because we are coming back to work eventually, and it could have an impact on your health. And if you are taking any kind of medication, just be on top of all of that. Don't kind of forget about how important it is to take care of your health, and your emotional wellness, and just realize that we are going to be coming back soon to some kind of normalcy, and we want to be healthy and ready to maybe walk up those stairs in the A building, from the lobby to the third floor. So we want to keep our stamina there as best we can.
Thank you, Fabian. It's been great tips. People have been adding a number of comments. Mindfulness from Kathleen is something that was added, and it's true. We have to be mindful of everything that we have. We have to
Yes.
watch, as you said, we have to watch on our habits, healthy habits, work habits, and general, making sure that we take care of our health overall. um, I want to thank Fabian for joining me this afternoon in this episode of Teaching Tidbits. I hope that this conversation and the tips that Fabian shared was useful for all of you. Keep typing your questions, and we will be checking this video chat so that we can answer them to you as well. Fabian is going to be checking that as well. So. And then it's Friday, as how Fabian started. It is Friday.
Yes.
Uh,
day.
let's take some rest during the weekend, relax, and spend do different things during the weekend so that you can get energized for next week work. We will be joining for another episode on Monday. So I invite everybody to tune in. It's going to be same time, 4 p.m. in Facebook and Twitter. And until then, enjoy your weekend. Many thanks, Fabian. Enjoy your weekend. And
Thank
then
you,
we will be.
Carlos. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Stay safe. Be well.
Bye bye.